live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It is officially draft week starting today.
It is.
It's going to be a weird week. It has been a long cycle, Blake, and I can't wait to put this behind me. I know it sounds very negative approach to talk about it because I cover the draft, but I want to just be able to focus on all these great stories that we have in college football because this has been such a headache of a draft cycle.
Can I tell you something that's very, very funny to me?
Okay, what do you got?
2.5 months ago, a little bit more than 60 days ago, 67 days ago, we went and looked this up today, and I posted the stuff on AYS. You know how when I'm right, I kind of want to rub it in sometimes. I came out and said that the New Orleans Saints and Jackson Dart, and I've told you this on this show before too, that the Saints and Jackson Dart, those conversations will be picked up. Today, per Adam Schefter, the Saints really like Jackson Dart. Huh. Joe, when you spend your entire life in one place and the people that get hired locally work for the organization that you grew up in, you know the people. They work there. I'm in a group chat with 3 of the dudes that work for the Saints, and I'm like, what? I keep asking, why y'all keep talking about Jackson Dart in our group conversation? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's put 2 and 2 together. Here's what I tell you. I don't know if he goes at 9. What I will tell you is that I do think he'll go at 40 if he's there, which I don't think he will be there, but I think he would go to New Orleans at 40. I will tell you this. I don't think that either tackle gets past Carolina. Will not happen.
That I agree with. From my understanding, I think Will Campbell and Membu are going to be off the board by then. The Dart thing's really funny because there was a complete overreaction to Jackson Dart, and I think a misinterpretation of that affinity for Jackson Dart on the Saints.
Yes.
I think that they liked him as a second-round pick, as an opportunity to take somebody and maybe he pans out and ends up being a good starter for them, and if not, ends up being a really good backup. And that was misinterpreted by a lot of media members the past couple of weeks and saying, he's going to go at pick 9. I really don't think – Jackson Dart, by the way, rescinded his decision to go to the NFL Combine. I really don't think he's going to go in the first round. I really don't. I think the NFL saw Kenny Pickett, and they don't want any part of that because he's going to end up like Kenny Pickett.
I'm not going to go that far. Here's what I tell you. I think that there's a thought process out there, Joe, that don't take this the wrong way. Mm-hmm. The Jalen Hurts route. In the sense of a second-round quarterback that has experience in the SEC that they want to try to develop. That's what I would assume that Kellen Moore wants to do. And I don't think that I'm really guessing there, but I don't know if that's going to work or not. Am I coming in blurry to you here?
Just a little bit, but I can hear you fine. I'm sure most people are able to hear you fine if I'm able to hear you fine. I think if anyone wants to do the Jalen Hurts bit, though, I think that they're going to try and do that with Jalen Milroe. That's a big talking point that I've had this week.
Very well.
That's why I have him as my third quarterback in this class.
The problem with Milroe, I mean, can I go on a little rant with you very quickly?
Go for it.
Every time that I see these draft analysis stuff, I feel as if though, like when you look at Jalen Milroe, you're confirming to me that you never watched a real game. Because there's no way in hell, none, that you can look at him as a passer and tell me that you think that Jackson Dart was not and has not been a better quarterback than. There's no way. I know that
he was
3 or 4-4, whatever it was. But there comes a part where the Jalen Hurts comparison to that, okay? Brother, Jalen Hurts went to Oklahoma and was 10 times the passer when he went to Lincoln Riley than what Jalen Milroe even touched. Brother, he was in New York. For crying out loud, he had the same amount of touchdowns going into the playoffs as Joe Burrow that same year. What are we talking about?
Okay. So, this is a big reason why at the beginning I said I'm sick of this draft cycle because look, you're bringing up fair criticisms, you're bringing up fair points, but all the arguing has been over 2 guys that probably aren't going to really start in the NFL. 2 guys that probably won't really play.
Fair.
This is Malik Willis and Matt Corral. we're doing the same shit that we did a couple of years ago with Malik Willis and Matt Krause. The same exact thing. But my counterpoint to what you're talking about with Dart and with Milroe is that a lot of Dart had some great games and he played great against Georgia. A lot of his production was boosted at the beginning of the season against some pretty bad teams.
I also agree with that. But
I get. Wait, hold on. I get what you're saying, but my only counterpoint is that when you dig into and when we watch Jackson Dart play, you start to realize that the guy is not as good of a decision maker and he's not as accurate as we all.
I agree with that. I know, I agree. But again, neither was Jalen Hurts really when it comes down to it. But again,
You're
not here about the draft. It will be fun.
Yes.
For the first time in like 4 years, I'm not going live for the draft. There's no way, unless somebody wants to do it. But I'm not doing it. All right. So, Joe, we got to get to a lot of stuff here. Let's start with this. Georgia got 3 guys from the transfer portal. We'll talk about that. But Aguilar also in the portal we talked about. We'll talk with the Tennessee angle. And we'll go on to Ohio State deep dive here tonight as well. But before we get rolling and everything, Joe, the Georgia Bulldogs, who hasn't necessarily always been completely active in the portal, has been more active in the spring and winter portal than they've ever been. They just added 3 guys in Josh Horton, the defensive tackle from Miami, Elo Modozie, the linebacker from Army, and Josh McCray, the running back from Illinois. So they do get 3 pickups here in the spring portal window. Your thoughts?
Horton, I'm not really – it's not that big of a deal. Didn't have a lot of production at Miami. This is depth. You're already really well recruited at defensive line. I really don't think that Horton's going to do much. But McCray and Modozie are going to be both really underrated pickups during this transfer portal.
I agree.
Modozie, I was listening to the 247 Sports' recruiting show that they have is fantastic. I want to dig into his film a little bit more. I didn't have as much time leading up to this show to do it. But from what I've seen, this kid's a freakish athlete. It's crazy that he was playing in Army. 6.5 sacks last year. He flies all over the field. I think that those tools are the typical traits that are coveted by the Georgia defensive coaching staff, ones that you see them go after with high school recruits. So the fact that they're able to steal a guy like this from Army of all places and this sneakily, it really is going to be a huge underrated pickup for them. And McCray, I'm surprised that he left Illinois. McCray was a player who, when we were talking a little bit about Illinois coming into this upcoming season, was a big reason why they could have a lot of offensive success. They've got a really nice running back room, but he leaves 6'1", 235 pounds, is a freaking dump truck, 10 touchdowns this past year. I can't remember the last time.
All in the red zone way.
I can't remember the last time that Georgia has had a mauling, big-bodied running back like this. And I think that this is something they've missed, and it's a big reason possibly why their run game has not been as good as we have hoped it could have been. So I love both these pickups, and I think both are going to pay tremendous dividends. I
want to go to Josh McCray first.
Okay.
Kirby is basically telling you without telling you what he wants to do, where he thinks he lacked, right? The offensive line and the offensive struggles that they had outside of Carson Beck, no, we're not talking about the Cavender situation where he got absolutely roasted today. Elite tweet by you that he's the Bo Callahan of quarterbacks. I do agree with that.
No one wants to go to his birthday party.
No one wants to go to his own teammates didn't show up to his birthday party, Joe. And I'm so sick of people saying that movie sucked. I thought it was pretty funny. But regardless of that, Joe, there is something to be said in today's world, in today's college football, about physicality, right? What are the teams that normally get to the pinnacle or get to the end? What was Alabama's biggest weakness? What was Georgia's biggest weakness? What was, in the moments and times, Penn State's biggest weakness? I thought that they lacked the physicality down the stretch that they needed to have to be able to overcome. We've never said that about the lack of physicality from a defensive aspect from Georgia. Offensively, they lacked there a little bit a year ago. Now you're adding a running back, and he might not get the production. I think that he will. That, Joe, quite honestly, they want to live in these situations of old school, let's line up on first down, run it right at you, put your head down, and get 4 yards. That's exactly what they want to do, and that's exactly why Josh McCray is arguably, because of the system, the biggest pickup that nobody wants to talk about. Joe, 11 touchdowns in the red zone total. He had 10 rushing, but here's the thing. Joe, they threw him the football in the red zone. He had 13 catches last year in the red zone for 116 yards and a score. Even though he's at 240 pounds, which I do think that he needs to lose maybe a little bit to be a little bit more versatile. But when Illinois got in the red zone a year ago, he grabbed that rock. And that's what Georgia wants to do here. They want to get back to their style of football. And here's the truth too, Joe. Regardless if it's Gunnar Stockton, regardless if it's Ryan Puglisi, or if they do go in the portal for a quarterback, who knows? You will have either a guy that has one start or will have a true starter in Ryan Puglisi. So you need to have that established running game. I love to pick up. I love when a team dedicates to physicality in the running game. Love it more than anything. But I think to your point here that you let off, I don't know if it's bigger than Elo, the Army linebacker who had 6.5 sacks last year and is very versatile. This is what I throw this in there about Horton too. Anytime Kirby Smart goes in the portal or recruits a dude defensively, I'm never going to question it. Why go and get a kid from Army? Well, I think because they see something, and you're right, I would need to go watch this film too, but 6.5 sacks at Army? Joe, they led the country in time of possession. That means that defensively, he had less snaps than anybody in the country. So when I look at stats, don't equal everything. If he's going after a guy that could be a pass rusher, if he's going after a guy that can play multiple positions, some coaches have these tells that if they do something, you got to live with it. So I like all three. In reference to Josh Horton, for me, you brought up the depth piece. Very possible, but I'm just not going to freak out over a true freshman kid who has very minimal production. When you go into when of all people to go in the portal and get a DT, why would I look at Georgia and say, well, man, what does Kirby see that I don't? So I love all three pickups, but I would put them in that order: McCray, Elo, and then Horton.
Yeah, and Horton was decently recruited coming out in the 2023 class. He's been around for a couple of years. Part of me kind of thinks, you know, what layer of this is him not scratching the surface of that starting lineup for Miami, and it was just better off for him to leave.
Very rudely, can I pause you?
Yeah. Well, he's also from Georgia, by the way, so that kind of plays into why he might have ended up there.
But I got to throw this in there. David Stone went in the portal. What team got him in the portal?
His own team?
No, Miami. Like there was a lot of Miami. I mean, not Miami. Miami was the team that a lot of people thought that was pushing for David Stone to get in the portal. I think it rubbed some of those DTs at Miami the wrong way. Really, I do. And I think that this is
probably quite possible.
Listen, I heard this from a guy that would know, okay? I think that some people in that room got pissed off, and they didn't get either. They lost a kid, and you didn't get David Stone. So I'm sorry to rudely interrupt you, but Joe, that's out there in the ether from people that we trust that are putting that out there.
Right. I think that's a very interesting perspective to put on that, and I kind of wonder if maybe someone like Horton, who hasn't contributed that much, who is going into would have been his third season with the team, that it would have been best for him to leave and goes back close to home. We'll see if he cracks the Georgia lineup or just contributes a little bit, which I'm sure he's got the frame enough to contribute. To just round out this, though, Modozie is going to be thrown out there, and they're going to try and find creative ways to deploy him. The thing that I took away from this when I was listening to some other analysts talk about him was that he is an athletic freak. He is a guy who is filled out his frame more and more playing for that Army program that is ready to take that next step of playing in the SEC. And then lastly, I don't think McCray takes over.
I agree with that.
Carries. I think it's still going to be Nate Frazier, but I think that he's going to be the second back ahead of Roderick Roberts in the second. I really think that he is probably going to get a lot of those goal line, short area carries. They're not that far off in size, Roderick Robertson and McCray, but I think that McCray has the actual production and the experience in those spots that he is going to be highly relied on, and him having that experience is going to be huge.
Joe, when you play bully ball in the running game, people get hurt. And the most depth that you can have, I attribute it to this. I'm not saying that, stay with me here. What would Belichick do in New England? Dude, if you would go to any roster depth, he would keep 5 running backs of the 53. Why? Because when you would pull a guard in the play action power style that you would run, you get hurt. And anytime that you can bring in a power back, Joe, I love this move. I agree with you. I think I don't even know if he's a top 2. But the problem is that when you get in 3rd and 3 and it's third quarter against Texas and you're at home, can you hand off a fresh back of ball, and that scored 10 touchdowns in a really tough league in the Big Ten? It's not as if that he was playing powder puffs, right? That's the part that I would bring out more than anything too.
Well, to finish this off before we hit the break, what was one of the biggest talking points that we had about Georgia this past year? We're sitting here talking about how the run game was an issue, but it was a step further than that. It was the
physicality,
lack of health. No, it was the lack of health at running back. They didn't have good depth. They were constantly banged up.
Games, what, 2 or 3, right? Like, I mean, it's not as if that he wasn't even banged up.
They were turning to Cash Jones. Remember
yes. Yeah. Well,
the
remember
white kid, walk-on kid,
didn't even play. Now they said it was an injury, but that's bullshit. I mean, we were told that wasn't it a broken rib? I mean, like, get out of here with that. So I'm with you. All right. Before we get to the break, Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at Melin. Now, you see our good hats here. You got the blue one. I got the tan one. And look, I wear these hats all the time, but absolutely fantastic hat wear.
Yeah, I haven't stopped wearing this hat since they sent it to me. I told you guys yesterday, I wore it when I was golfing. I keep wearing it when I'm working out. It has stayed in great condition, very easy to clean. And if you don't believe me, you need to try it out for yourself. Every penny, it is worth every single penny if you buy one of these hats, and you're going to love wearing it because for the comfortability, the durability, all those things. And they have different styles. They have different types of hats for different conditions. They've got a thermal collection, which if you want to get yours now before the winter next year and things start to get cold, make sure you go and head over to melin.com. That is spelled MELIN.com, so you can get yourself one of these great hats. And make sure you do it before the start of the summer when you're going to need something to cover your face.
I love them. They're the best hat wear around. You can get the bended bills. You can get the flat bills that bend a little bit, but they're easily washable. You can put them in a dishwasher, the washing machine. They're not going to break. They're going to hold up. Melin.com for your hat wear. But, Joe, very quickly, before we get to BetOnline, not joking. The funniest thing has just happened in the spring portal period. Breaking from Chris Lowe of ESPN. The quarterback trade is complete. Joey Aguilar plans to sign with the University of Tennessee, transferring from UCLA from App State in the winter portal. Nico Iamaleava has gone to UCLA from Tennessee, and now Joey Aguilar has intentions, per Chris Lowe, to sign with the University of Tennessee. Joe, he's done the funniest thing ever. I can't believe this has happened. We got to get to the BetOnline ad. We'll get to that in just a moment. But breaking news here.
No, let's talk about this. Let's actually talk about this.
Joey Aguilar is signing with the University of Tennessee. I can't love this more than anything, Joe.
Sources, Tennessee receives 2 day 2 picks and future considerations for the trade in part of this deal. Now, this is the stupidest thing ever. We have created trades in college football, but with extra steps. This is the stupidest thing that has ever. I can't believe that this is. We literally created a trade market without there actually being a trade market. And no, it doesn't matter how we want to rationalize and explain any of this crap. It quite literally is a trade. But to actually talk about this, I'm rooting for Joey Aguilar.
Me too.
I'm a hater. I don't give a crap. I am absolutely going to be a hater in this situation. Good for Aguilar for not only being proactive, but I'm sure that he was pissed off by how this was handled, that suddenly Nico just steps in and takes his damn starting spot. No questions asked. He gets no chance to prove himself. Go to the place that he left and outplay him. He's a decent player, man. I think that there's a shot that he could outperform what Nico did last year.
And that offense, Joe, what's going to happen now? Now, brother, let's get on the field, because we've talked so much about off the field stuff. It's a complete 180 from a mentality standpoint from what Tennessee's getting. I mean, you got to rein in Joey Aguilar. So Tennessee fans that will watch this video, look, we talked about him last night, and I'll reemphasize. Nico's biggest problem last year, Joe, was what? He was too hesitant to let that thing go. It's the complete opposite with Joey Aguilar. Completely different scenario. Now, look, App State last year, if you want to go by the stats, they sucked. It was a tough team. It was tough on him. I thought when Joey Aguilar went from App State to UCLA that Foster and company pulled a rabbit out of the hat at getting one of the more talented gunslingers that was out there. But last year is not inclusive to what Aguilar did. I go back to 2023, Joe. He threw for 33 touchdowns and 10 picks.
Yeah.
In a hypo-led offense, I would rather try to tamper a guy down than make him having to force it. And it's a complete 180. Now, the turnovers are an issue. He threw 24 interceptions in 2 years at a group of 5 institution. Now, that's not created equally. I understand the problems that App State had. Turnovers are an issue with him, and we got to make that under 17 interceptions in 2 years is insane. But the style of offense that he's going into, in reference to what you had a year ago and the hesitation, Joe, this is a damn good fit. Now, off the field, okay, this actually happening with the quarterback market is absolutely insane. This is why we love college football in a lot of different ways. He's actually going to Tennessee. I love this move. I absolutely love it.
I love it for the hilarity of it. And it kind of gives us a new storyline to root for. I would think that a lot of Tennessee fans are now buying into this because what it means, what it represents for the battle in a way against Nico now that he left, that you have a guy that is straight swap to prove that you were able to get more out of him. I think that one of the things that stands out when you watch Aguilar, and I want to dig into his film a little bit more, but I think you described him well. He's not a guy who's got a super big arm. He's not a guy that is going to wow you with the physical tools. He has the production from 2 years ago, but what you see is a guy who's decisive and he's willing to take risks. Now, that is a double-edged sword, because the side of it is if he thinks he sees something, he is going to just throw the ball into coverage and it could get picked off. Like the Clemson game that he had this past year was a very up and down, erratic game. His accuracy is a little bit inconsistent. But I think what didn't work for Nico in an offense, in Heupel's offense, that thrives also off of reaction, quick reaction, and decisiveness. And the guys that have done the best, Hendon Hooker had the best season out of any of these guys in the past couple of years. Dillon Gabriel was tremendous under Heupel when he was at UCF. Those two guys were great because they got the ball out quick. Yep. Nico held the ball way too long. Nico was way too timid about decision-making. If Aguilar can be set up to just grip it and rip it, I think that there is a path for a lot bigger of a season than many people would expect. Now, there is going to be a lot of cleanup that needs to happen from now until the start of the season, but there was a reason why UCLA was willing to take him and was willing to bank on the production that he had in the 2 years at App State and hope that it could end up working in their system.
All right. Let me bring this up. You talked about there's a lot of things to clean up. There is a massive concern for me in this move, but for Nico and for Joey Aguilar, let me tell you what it is. You're going to pick up Heupel's system, and you didn't go through spring. I understand he's going to have an entire fall camp. He's going to have an entire fall. Like, I get all of that. But at the same time, he's never thrown a pass to these receivers. He's never handed the ball off to any of these running backs. He doesn't know the checks of the line of scrimmage. I'm not saying this thing could be rocky early, pun intended with Rocky Top. I always worry about a quarterback in college that gets the nod and hasn't been in an offense, right? Like, I mean, I think of, okay, I mean, the only one that you said that probably couldn't would be Caleb Williams, but he was already in Lincoln's offense the year before. Let's go back to 3 transfer portal quarterbacks, or at least 2 that we talked about earlier. Jalen Hurts, remember the early struggles at Oklahoma? Like, he never threw a pass to his receivers, never took a handoff, or never gave a handoff. They ran the ball, if you remember. Mm-hmm. It was them running all over the place. Then they got more comfortable with CeeDee Lamb and the boys. Jaden Daniels. Joe, 2 guys that are in the NFL playing quarterback right now, when they they came into a situation, and by the way, both of those dudes had springs. What happens now when you come into a fall situation? That would be a concern for me. Now, you brought up this. You brought up that sometimes he's just going to let it rip. That is you're right. Not the biggest arm. I did think the Clemson game, for what it's worth, Joe, I mean, he just had trash cans running at receiver. I mean, he didn't have any help. Let's just be real. He didn't have help. He was trying to just make things happen. At the same time, though, in that system, if he's going to let it rip. And I think that look, the double-edged sword there, but Joe, what if he does reduce those turnovers? Now, I would say this: 24 interceptions at Tennessee, at App State. What does that happen when you go to a power conference? Right? Like the holes are smaller, the windows are smaller. Like it is a little bit of a level concern for me.
We're doing some real-time analysis here as we're talking. I pulled up his all-22 because I just wanted to have something to go off of. And everything that we're talking about here, I think, it plays into all the talking points. I'm seeing a kid who is incredibly just willing to just launch it. That is not always something that produces great results. There's some of these throws that you see on tape where he's just throwing the ball on seam routes over the middle to 2 safeties that are blanketing a receiver. I think that if Heupel is able to unlock that willingness to just attack, there is a path for them to be productive. It can be extremely. I agree with the point that you brought up, though, that where this is impacted on both sides for Nico and for Aguilar is that they're coming in after the spring ended, jumping into a summer session, getting ready to play for the season. I don't even know if Aguilar would start. I don't even know if this is maybe just an approach of let's see if he can compete for the job and we stick with the 2 guys who have been around. So we'll have to find out if this is even a plausible starting opportunity for the kid, but I really hope he does start because it would make things a hell of a lot more.
You know what I do? Can I tell you what? If he wins the starting job, I'm bringing him to SEC Media Days.
Oh, hell yes. Now that I don't know if Heupel's that type of guy. Heupel's not that much of a dick though. Like when Heupel played, when they played Oklahoma, I think that's a really good example of how just even keeled he is and just relaxed he is. If this was Lane Kiffin, you bet your ass Aguilar would be there. If this was Kiffin,
Oklahoma. I mean, I understand Oklahoma fired him. Whatever, he did win a national title there. Meaning Heupel. I think he loves Oklahoma. At the same time to that, this is a lot of pettiness. You don't know when that high level of pettiness happens. Name a time he hasn't brought a quarterback. He brought Nico and he never started a game.
Did he bring Nico?
Yeah. Oh, remember that he was wearing the lei and all that.
Right, you're right.
I mean, I'm bringing the kid. But here's another thing I want to add before we move on here. It also tells me what Josh Heupel thinks of his quarterback room. So, I mean, you bring in George McIntyre. You had the kid from last year, the freshman. I mean, you don't go get Joe. Now, you need depth, and I understand what's happening here. Maybe we'll see who wins it out. But Joey Aguilar's got some skins on the wall, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens here. But God, Joe, I freaking love college football. This is the funniest shit ever. This is by far the funniest shit ever.
I really was hoping Angeli would end up here because I think that Angeli would have been fun for him to get that redemption to go play in an offense.
I do think Angeli's got a higher ceiling for what it's worth.
Yeah, he does.
But
dude, maybe to what you're talking about here with the pettiness, maybe Heupel just said yes to this because
it's
he understood the whole the what could be played out of it.
Let me throw this out there too. Speaking of quarterbacks, Fran Brown announced a starter, and now they're after. Speaking of Angeli, they're after Angeli.
That
shit would work.
Feels
now.
Kyle McCord-esque.
I know.
Kyle McCord-esque.
And they throw that thing.
East Coast, New Jersey quarterback coming in and playing in your offense.
Ricky
I like
Collins
that.
will not play. Listen, Steve Angeli beats out Ricky Collins without a doubt.
I believe so.
Without a doubt. I don't miss me with the whole LSU angle. Oh, Blake's just no. Angeli beats him out. But even then, I mean, I think they told you what everybody's thinking. All right. 32 minutes in, and we got to get to a break. But, Joe, before we get to our deep dive, let's talk about our good friends over at Cheribundi as well.
Yes. We mentioned the first time we're talking about Cheribundi here, who is now sponsoring the show. And you referenced all the great gummies that they gave you. They've got gummies for so many different things. You were telling me before the show, I'm still my care package is coming in soon, and they have treated us so well with the amount of great samples that they've given us. They are a natural product with natural ingredients, no added sugar, natural anti-inflammatory with incredible benefits. They have products that reduce soreness, increase recovery, contain naturally occurring melatonin to help you improve sleep. They also have products that help support immunity. Cheribundi is also purchased by more than 2,000 college and professional teams, more than any other brand. Every NFL team uses them. Every SEC school uses them for football and throughout their athletic programs. 92% of college football teams that made a bowl game have used Cheribundi. 24 out of the top 25 college football teams in 2025 have used it. And every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007 has used Cheribundi. Use code AYS for 20% off of all of your orders at cheribundi.com, cheribundi.com. Use code AYS20 to get 20% off your first order.
All right. When you clip this segment for Joey Aguilar, please remember to add this. To end this segment with the Tennessee quarterback for me, Josh Heupel has the chance to be the ultimate legend of college football. Could you imagine if, like, just hypothetically, if Joey Aguilar goes nuclear, Josh Heupel's stock goes through the freaking roof.
Oh, but what if he stinks though? Then he.
I mean, there is the flip side of that. I'm rooting for Tennessee. I'm rooting for Joey Aguilar.
I am too. I absolutely am too.
You know what? Screw it. Joey Aguilar's in my top 5 SEC quarterbacks.
Oh, stop it. Stop.
I'm rooting. Rocky Top, oh, shit. LSU plays Tennessee in baseball. Hold on. Ask me after LSU beats them in baseball this weekend. Then it is all Rocky Top for Josh Heupel.
All right. I'll hold you to that.
So about good friends over at betonline.ag. When we come back, we talk good friend Dick Buck. I don't think I should say good friend with the word dick in it. Regardless, a $2 super chat says, who has a better shot to win a natty than Ohio State? We are going to do a deep dive on Ohio State, so let's go to that, Joe. I don't know about national title hopes coming off of the national title that they just won, but we've been doing these deep dives. Let's talk about Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, I hope that Ohio State fans are realistic for the expectations of this upcoming year. It's really hard to be ready to play back-to-back national titles, to win back-to-back national titles. The path is now longer. You are now in this world where those that have accomplished this have had a NIL commitment, including yourself, to bringing back key starters. And once those key starters leave, there's a little bit of a reset period. Again, it is something that we have not seen in college football. So as we do a lot with these segments, I'd like to point out this is the long list of players that are leaving for the NFL draft. They didn't lose really anybody important in the portal, but they're losing Josh Simmons, who went down at the beginning of the season with an injury, so he applies a little bit less. Seth McLaughlin, your starting center, in the same boat. But you're losing Emeka Egbuka, who is a former 5-star receiver and has been there for a long time. Tyleik Williams, who is a dominant defensive tackle. Both defensive ends, JT Tuimolau and Jack Sawyer, both running backs, Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Donovan Jackson, who's your starting guard / tackle. You're also losing your starting quarterback, Will Howard, safety Lathan Ransom, cornerback Denzel Burke, and there's even more guys that I didn't include on this list. There is a large core that is being replaced, but Ohio State has done a great job of recruiting, which as we dig into this further, they are better equipped to bounce back than most teams typically are.
You started off with what I was going to start off with Ohio State. So there's two schools of thought. There are teams out there in college football, when you recruit the way that Ohio State does, you don't rebuild, you reload. Ohio State is one of those teams. They don't rebuild, they reload. But, Joe, they still went 10-2 last year. They still had flaws throughout the season. They still were figuring some things out and some things that they were doing. You brought up, look, they're losing two running backs. They're losing two edge guys. They're losing a lot of DBs. The problem that I have with there is who's being replaced there, right? And it's so much talent when those guys are leaving that they're being replaced with. Now, they went out in the portal. They got two offensive linemen, the left tackle and Ethan Onamawa. I can't say his last name to save my life. Onanawa.
Yeah.
And then they went and got the right tackle and Phillip Daniels. Okay. And then they went and got Max at tight end. Max Clare at tight end. I look at them in such a unique perspective because I don't know if they can win a national title. Think they can win the Big Ten, though. Like, I mean, they're that talented. Are they poorly coached? No. Now, the things that scare me are this. You're replacing two coordinators, right? You're replacing everything with two coordinators. And as high as I am on Ohio State, I am very interested to see how all of that replacement, two coordinators, a lot of dudes in the draft, how do you respond from something like that? That is a lot to respond from. Joe, I still think that they're a bona fide playoff team, though, because I look at what they got along the offensive line, how they recruited there. I still think that they might be okay, if I'm not going to say better, but good at running back. Does Julian Sayin live up to the expectations of what we have for him? You know that you got freaks of nature at wide receiver. But, Joe, when there comes a lot of young, inexperienced talent, there's also comes a lot of mistakes. And I'm interested to see how they respond from something like that. Now, there is something that I do think that they've tried to do. There have been multiple defensive tackles that have entered the portal, none bigger than Syracuse's Murad Watson, that Ohio State is very much involved in here. What do they feel about their defensive line if they're going in the portal the way that they're trying to do here? That would be my question too. So as high as I am on them, I think they're easily a Big Ten contender to win the conference. The question that I have is, like, can you overcome all of those obstacles?
So, well, the first thing you just brought up there, I was listening to another show, the Cover 3 podcast, which is CBS Sports' premier college show, and they brought that same talking point up as, like, Brian Day seems to have brought up that they're going to look in the portal for defensive tackles.
Well, they already offered Murad Watson, right, to your point there.
So, like, how much of an indicator is that they feel they're lacking depth, they're lacking talent at a position that has been a strong suit for them over the last 3 years? They've had some great players that have come out of that defensive tackle room. I think that when we look at this roster for this upcoming year, you brought up something that's really important. They have they have the best returning receiver in Jeremiah Smith. They have one of the best, if not the best, returning safety in the country in Caleb Downs. They have one of the best returning linebackers in Sonny Styles. So they have premier players that will make up for the fact that they are asking younger guys to now step up. But where the unique consideration of what's going to happen this upcoming year, there's two questions that I'm asking myself. What does the turnover at coordinators, both coordinator spots, how does Matt Patricia do? How does Brian Hartline do as the new OCDC? And does Julian Sayin live up to this ridiculously high hype that we have placed on him? I feel like that we are throwing out a lot of expectations. Part of me kind of this reminds me, Blake, of when CJ Stroud took over for Ohio State, where everybody was kind of like waiting and thinking like, man, like is CJ Stroud ready for this? Like we're coming off of all these great seasons from quarterbacks. Like, is he going to be the guy? And he hits the ground running. He was a little slow to get going, but as soon as he hits his stride, he looks fantastic. And the rest is history. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Best game I saw, Georgia, that Georgia game.
Yeah.
Remember, right.
It was unbelievable. I think that Sayin has the tools and the mental makeup to be a great starting quarterback for Ohio State. But those questions do need to be answered, and they have to be answered quick because they start the damn season with Texas. There's no messing around.
All right.
I don't want to get in the schedule just yet, but that's right. My point is that there's no.
Hold on. The point on Texas. But Joe, you got 2 tackles along your offensive line that from the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Newsflash to Ohio State. I'm not saying you're losing the game. Please don't take what I'm saying as I'm saying that they're losing the game. We're not even close to predicting that. You're going up against the best front 7 in the country. Texas has the best front 7 in the country. Joe, is there really a debate? I mean, I don't know if that is a debate. Julian Sayin's never started a game.
It's very as apt as you have placed that is an extremely valid point that
right.
We're overlooking. We're overlooking.
8 of 11 starters offensively are gone.
Well, actually, let me take a step further. Sayin actually has not officially won the starting job yet either.
Okay. I'm not. Julian,
I'm just saying he's probably going to start
starting quarterback. Okay, come on. Let's be real. I mean, Aaron Nolan doesn't leave because Julian Sayin's losing the job. He doesn't leave if he's losing the job.
No. What I would counter that by saying that Nolan is leaving understanding that he is 4th on the depth chart behind Tavian St. Clair.
Okay, fair. But still, I still wanted Aaron Nolan to be good just based off of the name. I say 8 of 11 offensively, but 2 of those were running backs. I mean, you could do either which way you want with that. Joe, I got to be real with you. I am a little bit worried about them defensively, especially in the interior of that defensive line. The thing with me about their defense is when guys are going in the portal at DT, I don't know how much I like that, right? Like, I understand if it was a depth situation. This is like Texas is doing it from a depth perspective, right? Like, Texas going out there going after DTs is a depth perspective thing. It's not a starting thing. Like that's where they're at. So I look at you losing 9 of your 11 starters defensively. You're bringing in a new coordinator, by the way, who's never coached the college game. Now, the flip side could be brought on to that in this sense. The last time that we saw a Belichick run defense come into college football, they went from the 120th ranked passing yards per game at Washington to number 1. That's a massive difference. So this thing with Patricia can work. I'm not saying it can't. How many obstacles does he have to overcome for them to not have issues? Offensively, for what it's worth, I think that they're going to be fine. At receiver, running back, I feel like at offensive line, they'll be fine. I have a lot of hopes in Sayin. My worry is the lack of depth along their defensive line. That's where when you start, let's say they beat Texas, okay? You can come up for a game in game 1 when you're not beat up. When you go on the road in the Big Ten later in the season, how much does that depth warrant it? Like, you're going to need that depth. I do think DT is their biggest issue right now from a depth perspective, and I don't know if it's remotely close. So I think Matt Patricia ultimately will work there. I've kind of changed my tune on it. I really didn't like it at first, but now that I've kind of gotten to think about it, I do like it. At the same time, it's just so much to overcome. But, Joe, what are we overcoming, 10-2? I mean, is that where we see them? Like, so that's the point where I'm at. Now, they do start off with Texas. It's going to be a very interesting game coming out of the block here, mainly due to the fact that you have a first-time quarterback with that defense.
Yeah. Before we talk about that upcoming schedule in that game specifically, I just want to address the point that you make. I disagree with any fear that their defense is going to be the issue. I think that defensive tackle specifically, if we were going to highlight a specific position group that, hey, we have no idea if they've got the room for it. Like that feels like if they're going in the portal, they think that they need more depth. But I would argue over the past 3 years under Ryan Day, they have been one of the most well-recruited, not named Georgia, more than Alabama, more than a lot of SEC programs, more than Michigan, or Notre Dame. They have been one of the most well-recruited defensive teams in the country, especially at corner, at safety, at linebacker, at defensive end. You're asking new guys to step up. Defensive tackle, I will concede, is a question mark. I actually feel like I have more fear for their running back room because you had to bring in C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia, who's a quality player, but just because you have to go and grab somebody like that, are you worried about the fact that you've got 2 freshmen listed currently on our lads as your 3rd and 4th running back? And I think that the offensive line aspect of this is something that we always talk about. You've got 2 new starting tackles that were transfer portal guys. I always get a little weird, feel a little weird about that when you're bringing in 2 new guys that are from the portal that are starting right away. Fair. Josh Simmons, who was an awesome player for you guys, his first season from San Diego State wasn't all, rainbows and sunshine. He took a little bit of time to get going. It is a position that does not immediately hit the ground running.
The only counterpart to that I would say is Seth McLaughlin won the Remington Award. So to an Ohio State fan saying that you can't develop a kid in the portal very quickly at a place like Ohio State was a guy that we thought was the biggest liability at Alabama, literally won the best interior offensive lineman award.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, and by the way, that loss against Michigan, I don't care what anybody tells me, is lost because McLaughlin's not there. It's lost because protection is off. You can't get a running game going. But to your point, though, tackle's a completely different situation. You had to go in the portal and get it. Defensive tackle being a worry for me is basically because the last time that they had a defensive tackle issue was in 2022 when Jim Knowles got there. 252 yards at the end of the season was Michigan running the football. Now, it's a completely different team, but the last time I saw you have depth issues at that position, you got your asses whooped.
Fair.
So, by the way, my team struggles with it. The reason that Brian Kelly keeps giving up 250 yards on the ground per SEC loss is because they don't have the depth. That is the biggest position group that you have to have depth in. I understand your worries and concerns in reference to offense because there's so many unknowns. I just feel why do I not worry about Ryan Day offensively? Like, why do I feel like that they're going to figure that part out? That's the part of me is like, what is he just Julian saying not going to be able to throw it up to Megatron but Will Howard can?
Right. This is not a year to like really fear that the transition of the play calling to Heartline, like we talked about when that was announced. This isn't the year to really fear that because you have one of the most physically gifted freshman receivers ever.
So what if
if Sayin struggles, he's at least got a kid he could just toss the rock to and
you got Cornell Tate and Max Clare there.
Brandon Ennis is former highly recruited kid too. Yeah.
I mean, like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, receivers.
I mean, these guys got to step up, though. Everyone's got to step up.
I feel like Cornell Tate will. When you do look at their schedule, we've talked a little bit about that Texas game. When we look into it, I guess your thoughts.
Yeah, I want to quickly read through it as we usually do in these previews. Texas, they open up at home. They host Grambling State. They host Ohio. They get their first bye early on. They go to Washington, come back home against Minnesota, to Illinois, at Wisconsin, bye game, and then home against Penn State, at Purdue, home against UCLA, home against Rutgers, and then at Michigan. So the thing for me here, the 3 games that catch my attention, actually the 4 games. You're getting Texas coming off of all of this, which we could talk about in a second. You go to Illinois, and Illinois is going to be a great team this year, but I think you still beat them. You host Penn State, and having that battle at home, and also James Franklin not being able to beat you gives you a pretty good edge. Having to go to Michigan after last year's result is going to be a sticky situation, even if Bryce Underwood's starting and they're still figuring themselves out. So I think 10-2 is the more realistic expectation for this upcoming season. And we shouldn't be, if you went 10-2 this last year, 10-2 is likely in your cards this year with this schedule,
right?
And these changes.
I think I hate to put so much on an opening game because you have 11 more games that you have to play.
Yeah.
But, Joe, I have more questions answered with Texas and Penn State than I do Ohio State.
That's the whole point, and that's why when we did those previews and we talked about them, both of those teams lead the discussion are 1-2 to win a national championship this upcoming year because the questions aren't there to be asked. They answered them by returning those starters.
Exactly. I mean, what do we really think that Drew Aller gets worse? I don't think that they get worse.
No.
By the way, I understand the whole – look, I can go into this and talk about James Franklin and all that, and I get all of that. Joe, they return both of their running backs. Sound familiar? They got two really good backs. They don't have a receiving core, which Ohio State beats them in, but that offensive line that railroaded everybody. I mean, again, Joe, they're a yard away. Hold on. They're a yard away last year from beating you. Not making that up. I mean, every Ohio State fan that's watching this, deep down they know. They're at the goal line away from beating you. Those dudes return. I think I don't want to put everything on one game. You learn everything about this team in week one. Now, teams will get better, and they will get better as the year goes on. But you will get so many questions answered about Ohio State in week one. Joe, I got to be real with you. I could see the floor being 9-3 here. I can. I don't know if I see I don't know if I see a ceiling, and there would have to be a lot of collapse. I say a lot of collapse. No, they would have to lose to Penn State, Texas, and then one of those lose to Michigan. Joe, that can happen. So. Oh man, but I don't like that. I don't like even in saying that I don't like it. I don't think that exists.
I think in the era where roster retention is now impossible. Okay, there's a lot of turnover, and the roster retention issues they have is not your typical ones. It's not the hey, we had a bunch of kids leaving the portal. No, you just had all these great players move on to the NFL, and it's now time to reset. I think 9-3 is that floor because they have a harder schedule than some of these other Big Ten teams that we have spent time talking about. I think that the realistic outcome here is them going 10-2 because they're well coached enough, and Ryan Day is good enough of a coach, and they're well recruited enough at certain positions that we're talking about. But I'm not giving them a ceiling higher than 10-2. I think that there's too many difficult games on the schedule for them to go better than 10-2. If they went 10-2 last year with everything going right, why the hell would they suddenly get better the following year? 2026 is the year to go 12-0 theoretically, not 2025.
Man, I don't know.
I'm just saying, let's be realistic. You won a national title going 10-2. Why the heck would you expect to be better this year after losing all that?
Well, here's the thing, Joe. Not only that, you're losing 17 out of 22 starters. There's nobody in the country losing more production than you. No one.
Yes. Yep.
No one. I mean, listen, as much as people want to do whatever with Will Howard, I don't care. Brother, you won a game based off two defensive ends you lost that had a fumble recovery for 90+ yards. You have a quarterback who, Joe, went 15 of 16 in the first half of a national title game, who's been around the block. There are going to be some bumps, and I think every Ohio State fan needs to get with that. All right.
Stop it.
Arkansas 4-star true freshman quarterback Madden Iamaleava has informed Arkansas today that he is currently planning on entering the transfer portal.
What are we doing?
This I'm so over this.
All right, this is like I want to know the whole story here. This is a joke. This is a joke. Like, are we serious? Like, this is a joke. Who reported this? Did you say?
Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports.
This is a disgrace. This is a joke. This is a joke. When things don't go your way, is this how you're going to handle it? I don't want to fully react to this until I read it and we get the full story.
Well, he burned UCLA to go to Arkansas.
Is he going to suddenly show up at UCLA? And what the hell are UCLA for not having the integrity to
Joe, they need as much talent. They need as much talent as they can get per them. Can I make a joke? Lighthearted joke?
Go ahead.
Buy one, get one free.
Well, and this is what we get for signing Iamaleava.
Who names their son Madden?
I don't know. Well, okay. Well, we don't need to make fun of their name. I'm sure it's got a Polynesian.
No, it's got a football context. Daddy used to play Madden. Let's just be honest.
Oh, and look, in all seriousness, though, like this is bullshit.
In all seriousness,
this is ridiculous.
This is bullshit. Listen, well, hold on. I don't want to be that dude, but I'm going to be that dude. First off, this, as a father, what are you doing? I mean, I'm not trying to, very. Brother, we used to clown LeVar Ball. Remember?
Yeah.
This is worse.
Way worse.
What was LeVar Ball really like? What were they really mad at? He was trying to get his sons into the NBA. Both two of the three play in the NBA,
and they're great. And the other one's a successful rapper. No, LeVar Ball. It was just because he was loud and over the top. This whole thing with their father. Yeah, I don't know why any college team would want to be a part of this. I bet you if either one of them play well enough, they're going to try and leave UCLA.
Probably.
They absolutely will.
Probably. Look, it shows me that who's ever leading that camp does not teach structure and does not teach accountability.
No.
And you know what? I feel bad for Arkansas, but in the same sense, I don't. Because you had to have known that this was coming. You had to have known.
I wonder what freshman quarterback UCLA has that Arkansas can now sign.
If that happens, hold on. If that happens, I'm going to freak out. This is stupid. This kid's not even that good.
I'm genuinely curious to know if he ends up going to UCLA. I'm trying to see what quarterback they have. I don't know if they have any other quarterback, if UCLA has any other quarterbacks on roster.
I don't know, but it's a damn shame. All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this more on Wednesday when we get some more info. Until then, we'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good night. Peace.